A secretly recorded confession at the center of a high-profile murder trial in Saskatoon has finally been played in court. Greg Fertuck describes in his own words how he allegedly shot his wife, Sheree. Sheree Fertuck disappeared 6 years ago. She was last seen driving to work at a gravel pit near Keniston. Fertuck confessed to an undercover police officer, but has since said he made it all up. Dan Zakreski is following the trial and has seen that tape. He joins us now. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Sam.
Tell us, what was on that secret tape?
Well, Sam, what we see on the tape is Greg Fertuck meeting with a man that he thinks is the head of a criminal organization. Now, this meeting takes place in a suite at the James Hotel right here in downtown Saskatoon. It happened in the third week of June in 2019. Now, this is also the same week that the Jazz Festival plays in downtown Saskatoon. So as we're watching this tape in court, one of the first things we notice is there's live jazz music drifting up from the street and into the suite, which gives the whole tape a very Saskatoon in the summer specific ambience. Now, Mr. Fertuck is meeting with this crime boss because he wants help in cleaning up a murder scene. What he doesn't understand is this supposed crime boss is actually an undercover police officer. Now, Greg Fertuck has been tricked into thinking that this crime boss has inside knowledge about the disappearance of his wife, Sheree. The crime boss tells him that he's heard that the RCMP are on the cusp of arresting Greg, and that when he'd heard this, his first inclination was, look, I don't need this sort of heat in my criminal organization. I was going to fire you, but your criminal colleagues vouched for you. So the offer that he makes Greg Fertuck is, look, Greg, if you come clean and tell me exactly what happened to Sheree, then I'm in a position to help you clean up your mess.
So what does Greg Fertuck say?
Well, Greg Fertuck on this tape takes us back to that day in December 2015. Now, he says that afternoon he drove out to the gravel pit where he knew that Sheree was going to be working. He wanted to talk to her about splitting up their assets. They were in the middle of a messy separation, and he says he wanted access to his money. So he got out there, and when she shows up, he said they started to talk, but he said this talk quickly turned into a confrontation and that he lost his temper. He says specifically what happened is when they started talking about the splitting up the assets, she said, no way you're going to get it. And in his words, she said that I'm going to take you to the cleaners. And that's when he lost his temper, went to his truck and got his .22 rifle. Now, he says he came back and shot her first in the right shoulder, and she spun and fell to her knees. And as she was on her knees with her back to him, he shot her again in the back of the head and killed her. And he says he took a tarp that he had in his truck, wrapped up her body, and used a front-end loader to dump it into the back of his half-ton. Then he drove out to a spot in the country not far away and dumped her body in a stand of bushes. It was quite a thing to watch, Sam.
Wow. This sounds like a confession. Where does that leave the defense?
Yeah. Well, Sam, it sure sounded like a confession when we saw that hidden recording. And I have to say, we had a clear sight line on this hidden camera. It was in a coffee station. The audio was really clear, so there was no mistaking what he said. In fact, Mr. Fertuck has since changed that story and has now pleaded not guilty. What he says now is that the gang had pressured him into making that admission, that he was scared. He believed that he was going to lose his job in this organization, and he made up the whole story about killing his wife. And what he says now is, look, even though I went on to draw a map of where I supposedly took Sheree, and they spent 2 days looking for her, they never did find her body. And in fact, 6 years later, Sheree Fertuck's body has never been found. Sam?
Wow, thanks for this, Dan.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Dan Zakreski in Saskatoon. You can read more about the Fertuck trial at cbc.ca/sask.